Hi, this is Stephanie from Culture Magazine, and I'm here with Madeleine Coggins, Laura Chenel, Marin French. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. If you would like to ask a question, please use the Q&A button. It should be at the top of your screen. If you just tap that, type in your question or click on it, whatever, and type in your question. I will be reviewing those questions as they come in, and I will interrupt Madeleine or whoever is speaking with questions as they come in, as they make sense. So, but we will also have time at the end for questions, and I will try to group questions into categories that will address what's being spoken of at the time. And so without any further ado, this is Madeleine Coggins, and she's gonna take it away.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to virtually meet you. I'm Maddie Coggins. I'm part of the team over at Laura Chenel and Marin French Cheese. And today I'm going to be sharing a little bit about us and who we are and what we love to do. So we're going to get started with a little bit about our history, our milk sourcing, what makes us so darn delicious. And then we're going to ease into a tasting of all of the delicious cheeses that we sent out today. So try and resist. I know it's hard. Try and resist until we get there. I promise it's coming. And then you can dig in and enjoy all the cheesy goodness yourself. And then we're going to be meeting with one of our mongers from our retail store, Leslie, who's going to be sharing a little bit about her experience, you know, working and selling the cheese and her tips and tricks to get people to understand how to use it and how to enjoy it best. So with that said, let's dive right in. I'm going to go ahead and start with Laura Chenel. So a little bit about Laura Chenel. She's been around, we're entering our 5th decade of goat cheese production here in Sonoma County. Laura Chenel herself is from Sebastopol, California, where she grew up in the countryside at her parents' home, and her parents managed a restaurant. So she came by her love of food very honestly. She studied in Europe, in college in San Francisco, in New York, where she got experience of, you know, more than just local cheeses, where she got this beautiful global perspective of how to, you know, experience and enjoy and eat different cheeses. And while she was studying in Europe, she discovered goat cheese. She went back to her parents' home and they'd had pet goats, and she started experimenting with cheeses and yogurt to try and recreate that perfect taste that she'd had in Europe. And she didn't like goat milk at first, so it was a challenge for her to really find a way to transform the milk from her parents' goats into something that she could enjoy and that, you know, she felt pride in. Her first experiments weren't successful, so she went back to Europe and she studied with 4 different farmers to learn how to make goat cheese the traditional French way. And fun fact, one of those farms was the one belonging to our general manager, Philippe, who's still part of Laura Chenel today. When she came back to Sebastopol, she started the Laura Chenel that we know. She'd gained the knowledge and the expertise to really produce this unique product that hadn't really been a part of the American market up to that point. And she herself did have a few goats, but primarily she sourced her milk from her community. So it's always really been a community effort building out our goat cheese business, because up to that point, nobody was making goat cheese for retail stores, and it wasn't really in restaurants yet. And so all the goats that were around her in Sonoma County and the Sebastopol area were used for shows. And all of that milk was, you know, going to waste or just being, you know, enjoyed as a drink, or there was a little bit of jack production at the time as well, but nothing like fresh chèvre or the aged goat cheeses that she'd grown to love in France. So she partnered up with her community. She got, you know, rallied and got everyone involved, and started sourcing her goat's milk and producing, you know, the goat cheeses that we know and love today. And some of the ones that we're going to be tasting today have been around since the beginning. I have Laura Chenel's goat cheese cookbook from 1983 here with me, and I flagged a page where you can see some of her early illustrations, and some of these are still things that we're going to be enjoying today. We have the Chablis, which you all are going to get to enjoy in about 20 minutes. We still produce in several flavors: the pepper, the herb, the dill, our logs, fromage blanc, which has evolved into our chef's chèvre and spreadable cheeses. And cabacu, which is our beloved little tubs of marinated joy. So we've really stayed very true to Laura Chenel's intention and her founding, cheeses and love, and just continued to expand from there. So Laura Chenel really got her start out of farmers markets. As I mentioned, she was, a small local cheesemaker, and so she started in farmers markets in 1979, and a year later she met Alice Waters, who's of Chez Panisse fame, and Alice loved her product and became her first big customer. And she would take our original goat cheese log and slice little thin medallions of the goat cheese, which she would roll in herbs and breading, and then she would fry them and bake them until they were just perfectly melty, gooey cheese happiness. And she'd put those on top of a salad of fresh mesclun greens, all local, beautiful, delicious. And that became kind of Laura Chenel's iconic dish. We still have the recipe on our website today if you want to try it, on laurachenel.com. And that really kickstarted Laura Chenel as we know it today. She began heavily in restaurants and supporting that community. She released 2 cookbooks, and that continues to be an important pillar for us. So, our heart goes out to the restaurant community right now, who we know is struggling. We're trying to do our part as a brand to keep things going for our restaurant partners. We've got a give back program for our online store, going back to Restaurants Care, to show a little support for this beloved piece of our community. And then of course, we've also expanded into retail, and the key to our great cheese is delicious goat milk. We think if you have goats that you raise with care, that you give the love and attention that they need, that they're going to produce great milk, and that is going to translate into a high quality, delicious product. So for us, that means working with family farms. We have a network of 13 that source the milk for all of our cheeses, and they're local to the West Coast. They're in California, Oregon, Nevada, and Idaho. And we're very close with them. We actually have a member of our team who is available to them, who worked with Laura Chenel in her original 500 goat herd, learning the right way to care for them and raise them as she learned in France. And we share that knowledge and continue to provide support for that network of farmers so that they can continue to produce and be successful and have the tools that they need to run their business as well. So we're dedicated to those relationships and to great goat milk and great cheeses. And Laura Chenel has been as well. She stayed with the Laura Chenel business for 27 years of love and goat milk. And then in 2006, she decided it was time to retire. She'd always believed, you should produce your own food, and she wanted to take a step back to really enjoy her goats, garden, and be a part of the community. So in 2006, she sold the business to the Tribala family, who are a French cheesemaker. And I know, ooh, scary, you sold the business. What about your community? What's happening? Don't worry. The Tribala family are very passionate. They have the same founding values that Laura Chenel does of care, high quality, and community. They have a few creameries in France, and they're very dedicated to producing cheese with care in the traditional way. One of the companies that they're a part of is Fromagerie Germain, who does Aop Cheeses, which are call that basically protected origin cheeses, which means you can only make these in certain parts of France and you have to follow strict guidelines to make sure they're done exactly the historical way so that they maintain that same beautiful quality. And you can see that care that they have has continued into Laura Chenel as well. The family, it's still a family-owned business, and the Travala family comes out and visits us often, several times a year, to check in, see how we're doing, make sure that we have everything that we need. So it's been a great partnership, and they continue to really support those founding values. In 2011, they actually invested in Laura Chenel to create a new creamery where we handcraft our beautiful chev in Sonoma, California. And the new facility really emphasizes sustainability. There's this big idea of what grows together goes together. And part of that is respecting, you know, the land where you're producing and where your food comes from. So it was really important to us to have a sustainable place to do that, to produce our cheeses. So it's actually a LEED Gold certified creamery, the first one in the nation, built in 2011. And it has over 1,000 solar panels that provide power to the creamery. It has reclaimed wood walls, great water recycling treatments, so that we can continue to produce our cheese in a sustainable way that respects the environment of Sonoma that we're in. And so we definitely have set our roots in Sonoma County and continue to be a community-oriented, happy cheesemaker. So now I'm going to go ahead and take us on a little trip outside. We're at Marin French Cheese today, so it feels only right that I share the story of Marin French Cheese while we're basking in the sunshine on the 700-acre Hicks Valley Ranch. So while we head out there, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for a few questions.
So we've got a question. Someone, Robert L., I'm not sure where he's from, wanted to know if you can share some of, I think what he's saying, how he's used some of these products. And I'm going to suggest that at the end that we can open that up and ask everybody to tell us pairing suggestions, uses that they've discovered. I know we sent some earlier, we sent some suggestions along with the acknowledgement of your being part of this. We're also going to hear from both Simon, I believe, as well as, is it Leslie, who's going to be talking to us about the whoever's in the shop, the monger who's in the shop. So I think we're going to sort of keep it for that time. If anybody else has other questions that they want to throw at me right now, you've got a captive audience. So go right ahead.
Happy to answer any and everything. Now I'm taking you guys on a sneak peek. We'll spend a little bit of time here later, but this is our Marin retail store over in Petaluma. This is where we'll be meeting Leslie in just a little bit, and she'll tell us about her experience as a cheesemonger and her passion and love for cheeses, how she loves to use them, and what our customers have to say at the retail store. All right, pardon the glare as we come out into the beautiful sunshine today. It is proper hot here in California. It's about 85, 90 degrees, but we're lucky enough to have nice dry heat, so it's not too bad.
Maddie, Erica from Texas would like to know what particular goat breed of choice for these cheeses is used. What's the goat?
One more time, sorry.
Erica from Texas would like to know what kind of goat, you know, which is it a Nubian, is it Sarah, whatever. What is the type of goat that comes from?
We use a wide variety of goats, and that's because of the different terroir or the different regions that we raise our goats in to produce our cheese. So we allow our farmers the freedom to choose what is going to produce best and what is going to have the best quality milk production for their area. So we do have a combination of different types of goats.
So this is just a sneaky question, but do you know when Laura Chenel started, do you know what kind of goats she had? Her pet goats?
I want to say they were Nubians, but don't hold me to that.
Okay.
I know they were cute and playful. I think already then there was an assortment.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So we are out here on the 700-acre Hicks Valley Ranch that Marin French Cheese calls home. I'm going to give us a little 360-degree view here so that you can enjoy the scenery and the landscape where we produce our cheeses.
Not bad.
Pretty good place to spend the day. We're hoping to be able to welcome people back out here to spend more time soon. We have had to temporarily close the grounds with COVID-19. So these 700 pristine acres have been in Marin French Cheese's care since 1865, when Jefferson Thompson produced the first Marin French cheeses. So at that time, the gold rush had just come to a close. And so there were all of these miners coming back to California or back to San Francisco, trying to find, new work, new things to do. And that meant that there was this huge influx of people, more than the city was really ready for at the time. The hot breakfast back in those days was pickled eggs. And
Yum.
with all, yeah, it sounds delicious, doesn't it? And with this giant influx of people into San Francisco, they ran out. There was an egg shortage and they couldn't fill demand. So Jefferson Thompson, who had just moved to the area and opened his dairy and was just beginning to make French style cheeses, saw an opportunity to provide a new source of protein to these miners and to these people who suddenly, needed a breakfast option. And he found that demand was so high, he didn't have time to age his brie style cheeses. And so he created a fresh brie, what we now know as Petite Breakfast, which was our flagship cheese. And it became a great option for family meals, for breakfast, and to help support this influx of people. So they were taken by wagon and ship across the bay to San Francisco. And in the mid-1900s, they added aged cheese to the repertoire that included breakfast cheese as well, cream cheese and other fresh varieties. And they actually produced those in a hand-dug cellar here on the Marin French Cheese property, one that we still use today. You can see behind me here, this is where the magic happens. I'd love to take you down, but unfortunately, while all kinds of beautiful stuff happens in our cheese cellar, one thing that doesn't happen is great Wi-Fi. But Simon will be happy to tell us a little bit about the making process in just a few minutes. So descendants of the Thompson family continued to be involved through, the Great Depression in the 1930s, when they sold their herd of cows and committed to buying locally, which Marin French Cheese still does today. And they, continued to be a part of it until the creamery became the property of Jim Boyce in 1998. And Jim Boyce took over and he really invested in the creamery. He was an entrepreneur and a visionary and committed to upholding the tradition of Marin French cheese. And when we say Marin French cheese, we really do mean equal parts Marin and French. The cheeses are made in the French style, but we really pride ourselves on being a part of and embracing the California terroir here. We do have a wash rind cheese that uses the coastal air here in Petaluma to produce something that only we can make. We use local milk to Marin, and you can really taste that butteriness. You can almost taste the foggy air in our cheeses. And we source our milk from 3 types of cows, from Guernseys, from Holsteins, and then also from Jersey cows. So Jersey cows are little happy brown cows, and they produce a really rich, high-fat milk. They just don't produce very much milk. The majority of our milk comes from Holsteins, which have a very balanced profile of protein and of fat. And then the Guernsey cows, which are small brown and white cows, have a very rich golden milk, and that's what gives our bries and our triple creme their signature golden color.
Mm-hmm.
So we're part of a co-op where we purchase our milk, and all of it comes from within 20 miles of the creamery. So we're still definitely embracing that local milk sourcing that is signature of our cheeses, and that gives them that classic taste. So after Jim Boyce purchased the creamery, around 2005, he entered our triple creme brie into the World Cheese Awards, which was the first international competition that allowed US and European products to compete directly against each other. He broke records when our triple creme brie took home the gold medal, which made it the first US cheese to win a French brie, or to beat out a French brie in an international cheese competition. Around that time, he was also looking for someone to help him realize his dream of expanding and modernizing the cheese production in aging rooms. And, you know, he began talking at that time, around 2010, with Hugh Tribala, who is part of the Tribala family, who now owns Marin French Cheese. And they'd begun negotiating and decided they were good partners. And then Mr. Boyce passed away in 2010 and passed the torch to Mr. Tribala in 2011. So again, it's become part of this larger family-run organization that continues to support and provide for the needs of keeping a creamery up and operational, making sure we have all the tools that we need, and making sure that we have support and guidance from someone who's been making cheese in France for a very long time, the best in the business, and knows exactly what they're doing. So it continues to be a great partnership. Looks like my colleague Simon is just coming out to join me. He's carrying a big, beautiful plate of cheese. So I hope you all are excited to start digging in. Here we go. I'm going to go ahead and take us to the next table over. But on our way, I want to make sure and point out this beautiful lake behind me. So this is actually a man-made lake here on the property. And the reason why it was dug out was because there used to be a barn here before the Great Depression when they sold the cows on the property. And so this lake behind me had a beautiful barn on it that actually caught fire and burned down. Don't worry, all the cows made it out okay. And at the time, the Thompson family said, well, this just isn't ever going to happen to us again. So they dug out the lake, they filled it up with water, and just over the hill there, right over here, is actually a fire station that they built at the same time, which continues to provide fire safety services for not just our property, but for the properties around us to help keep the community safe and make sure that that never happens to anyone here again. All right, so here we go. Looks like Simon just grabbed a water. If you haven't, you might want to grab a beverage. Things are about to get cheesy. So we're gonna go ahead and take you on a guided tasting today of some of our delicious cheeses. I'm gonna give you a quick screenshot at what we've prepared here today. We have a beautiful assortment. We have our fresh goat cheeses, which we're gonna go ahead and start with. And then we're gonna ease through our fresh into aged, and then finish with flavors and our baked brie en cru. Now, it's all right if you guys haven't baked these to go with us today. Please feel free to save them for a dinner party, to enjoy with friends. While I don't think there's a single member of the Marin French Cheese team who hasn't eaten a single one by themselves for lunch, we do recommend sharing it with friends or family, whatever allows right now. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my colleague here. This is Simon.
Hi.
Our cheesemaker here at Marin French Cheese. And he's going to give us a quick overview of the beautiful and delicious cheese making process.
Exactly. Welcome first in this beautiful property of Marin French Cheese.
Can you be a little bit closer? It's hard to hear you.
Here we go. We'll bring it in.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Is it
Carrie
good like
Jared
this?
wants to say hi, Simon.
Hi. So welcome on this beautiful property of Marin French Cheese. So we have different cheeses today to taste. So if we speak about the Marin French Cheese brand, so we have two kinds of process. So first, all the cow milk we receive, it's coming from two dairies. They are located only 10 and 15 miles away from the creamery. And we are working with them for more than 10 years. So if you look at the plate you have, you will notice that you have the Petite Breakfast. So it's the one naked, the naked cheese without mold. And there is a triple crème brie. This one has a white mold. So basically, so we are today Monday. We will receive the milk that we will use in production tomorrow. We will receive it today. So a milk truck will deliver the milk to the factory. We will test it to be sure it's free of antibiotic. We'll check the temperature and pH to be sure that the milk is okay to receive at the creamery. Once it's received, so that means tomorrow morning, we will pasteurize it. Why we pasteurize it? I think you have, all of you, a lot of knowledge. It's mostly for food safety, but also to be sure that, yeah, for food safety, yeah. In France, maybe some artisanal cheese do not pasteurize it, but here in the soft ripened cheeses in the US, it's not allowed. And then when it's pasteurized, we send the milk to production. In production, we will do a step called maturation. The maturation, so it's a step that lasts 45 minutes. And in this maturation, we will put in the milk all our good friends, the cultures. That means we'll put in the milk yeast, mold, or different, yeast and mold, yeah. Sorry.
Culture. Culture.
Yeah, cultures, thank you.
Yeah.
This maturation will last 45 minutes and we will monitor the pH during this time. We want the milk to sit in this tank, in this silo for 45 minutes to be sure that the lactic bacteria are already working on the sugar of the milk, the lactose. When the pH is dropping, it's decreasing. That means the starter, the culture, are already working in the milk. So that means the milk will be ready to send into production. So in production, we will fill what we call buckets. It's a 20-gallon silo.
And they're bright blue. They're very striking.
Blue, yeah.
It's, you know, you could not even fit your arms around it. These are giant buckets full of, you know, cultured milk.
Yes, exactly. So in this bucket, we will fill them with the volume we want. And we will also put in this bucket the enzyme called the présure in French, the rennet. So same thing in Marin French, we use only vegetable rennet, not animal rennet.
And what does the rennet do, Simon?
The rennet will start working on the proteins of the milk. And that means like this, you will create a gel. This gel will become hard or soft, depending on what you want. But in the soft ripened cheeses, we want it pretty solid. So you can see the action of the rennet in mostly 9 to 12 minutes. The milk will transform from fluid, liquid, to a pretty solid gel. Once with the cheesemaker, we feel that the gel is hard enough, we will cut it. So we will dump a cheese knife by hand, and we will cut the gel. That means when we'll remove the cut, the knife, we will have small cubes of this size of curd into the bucket.
So it's kind of like a big wire cutter, just like
Yes.
how you would use a cheese wire. It's similar to this, but it's a large screen that goes all the way down in the bucket, and you slice it first one way and then the other to get those interesting little cheese curd cubes.
Exactly.
And just to be clear, you're doing this by hand. This is a by hand process, per
exactly.
bucket.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because we want to make sure that we cut it when the gel is ready. If you process a big amount of liquid of milk, and if it's a big silo of I don't know 50,000 gallons, you will have difference of coagulation
Okay.
and
The
texture.
product
Yeah.
won't be as consistent, and it won't reach, the same texture that we're looking for.
Okay. It's hard to hear you right now, but we're hearing. That's great.
Okay.
Good. Nope. Yep.
And that's why, so we make for sure everything by hand here in Marin French Cheese, but that's why it takes a lot of time to train our employees, and we make everything possible to retain them. So that means if we in the production team, we have a little team of 12 people, but we have people working here in this team for more than 20 and 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and in the packaging team, we have some people here for more than 50 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So is this the buckets and then the cutting the curd, so that now you from what I understand you now scoop it out. Is that the sort of traditional
Yes.
French traditional? Okay.
Yes, totally. Yep. We basically do everything here like in France.
And so from there, you take the buckets of curds, and then they're poured out onto a long metal table that has these bright blue cheese molds in it.
Exactly.
And want to take over, Simon?
Yeah, of course. So before we mold, we pour the curd into the molding and the cheese mold. Sorry, we want to make sure that the curd is hard enough, because what will happen between the cutting and the molding, the way the liquid part of the cheese, of the milk, will drain from the curd, and the curd will become harder. Same thing, we check it every 15 minutes to be sure that the curd is hard enough. Once it's hard enough, we pour the curd and the whey into a molding table where the cheese molds are dispatched. And then when we pour the curd into the molds, we dispatch it by hand to be sure that each hole in each mold have enough curd.
So this is a whole team of people over each individual cheese mold, making sure that they're perfectly filled with just the right amount of curd, so that they make just the right size of cheese for production.
Exactly.
And it's really interesting too, unlike, a fresh chèvre where it goes into a cheesecloth, there's actually little holes in the molds, and you can see the whey come shooting out when we first dump it out.
Okay.
So when the curd is in the mold, so it's a mix between curd and whey. So we will have the mold sitting for one night at the good temperature, so that means 80 Fahrenheit. And like this, the culture will be starting working. And so during the afternoon, we will switch the mold. We will not switch, we will flip, sorry.
Flip.
We will flip the molds to be sure that the draining, it's the same on each part of the mold. So that's the day of making. The team will come at the day after, we call it day +1, and they will demold. So that means we will take the mold and we will demold the cheeses and put them on aging racks.
So if you look at our cheeses, you'll see on the bottom.
Oh, yes.
On the cheese, and those are actually from the drying racks where the cheeses are demolded.
Exactly. Once the cheeses stand on the aging racks, we will dump them for 25 to 45 minutes in a brining solution. This brine, it's mostly water and salt, and the cheese, but this time will sit in these brining tanks. And so what we will have is that the salt will enter into the cheese, and the water from the cheese will come out. We brine it from 25 to 45 minutes, depending the format and the amount of salt we target in the final products. You have to know that for a camembert or a brie, we target between 1% or 1.5% of salt in the final products. Why we salt it? The first goal for the salt is, of course, to bring the flavor, because I'm sure that you cook at home and you already try to eat something without salt. It's not as good. The second goal of the salt is to protect from pathogen. Pathogens that could be a bad bacteria that can be harmful for the consumer. So the salt is a protective agent.
So it helps keep the cheese safe and delicious.
Exactly.
All the way to
Yep.
Your local cheesemonger.
And the third goal for the salt is also to increase the draining, because we want the water, the humidity, the moisture to be lower during the aging process. So then when it's brined, we will send the cheeses to the first aging room called a drying room. So because of the brining, you still have a lot of humidity in this cheese. So we bring the cheeses in a drying room where we measure the airflow, the temperature, and the humidity. In this first room, the goal is to dry the products on the surface and inside. They will spend 1 day in this particular room. And then, so we will be at making plus 3 days. We move the cheeses to aging rooms. All the cheeses that we make in Marin French Cheese, except the Petite Breakfast, will be aged for 8 to 12 days.
Part of the partnership between the Tribala family.
You know what? Lean closer when you're talking, because we do want to hear you.
Sorry, everyone. So when the Tribala acquisition of Marin French Cheese happened, we also moved the production of the Laura Chenel aged cheeses here. So Simon also is part of the team that crafts the beautiful goat brie that we'll enjoy today as well.
You're totally wrong. And with the goat brie, it's mostly the same process, but with goat milk.
Where did you learn how to make cheese?
In Normandy.
Simon? In Normandy.
Yep.
So you started making camembert? Were you making camembert?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I was working for the second most famous brand in France called Cœur de Lion.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm born in the northwest of France, Normandy, and I arrived in the US 2 years ago.
And we're glad to have him.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Putting the French on Marin French. Very good.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes sense.
Like I said, it's 50-50, the Marin and the French.
Yeah, exactly. And so during the aging, we will flip the cheeses 2 times. Like this, you will have an even development of the mold on all the surfaces of the cheese. That means, yeah, we can see it on the goat brie, so you can see I think the line of the aging racks, and you can see it on the other sides too.
Yep.
The goal is to get it completely covered in that beautiful, silky, velvety rind.
Exactly.
Right. And I also want to point, I'm sorry, you talk.
Our rinds are all edible here. Go ahead, hit me.
No, I was just going to say, and you want it to look like that when it's being sold. You want that beautiful snowy white. Okay.
Totally.
So let's talk about what's normal and what's not normal when we get to a shelf. So it is normal to have a little bit of browning or oxidization on a rind by the time it gets to a retail shelf. The rind of a cheese is a living organism. You know, it is, cultures, it is yeast, and so it needs to breathe. All of our cheeses are wrapped in a special cheese paper, and if you look very closely at the paper, you can see tiny dots, and that allows for the cheese to breathe while it's wrapped. So if at any point the cheese is, squished, or if the paper is too tight and a little bit of the rind can't breathe, that's when you'll get a little bit of the browning. It's still completely safe to eat and delicious. The only time to be concerned is if you get a crazy color going. A yellow, maybe give it a pass.
Pink.
Pink.
Mhm.
So let's also talk about, pardon my reach, Simon.
Yeah, no problem.
Let's also talk about what the aging process looks like, because not all bries are equal, based on the time that they're produced. Because it's a living organism, it continues to develop and grow and age throughout its whole lifespan.
Exactly.
And so there's a recommended time where you would eat each of the cheeses. And, we'll show you, I have two traditional bries here.
Yes.
I have one that is expiring on September 2nd, and I have one that's expiring on September 20th. And I'm going to cut them both in half and let Simon talk to you a little bit about what we see in each of them and what causes that.
So it's very important to understand that at the beginning of the aging process, all the cheeses look like this one. That's mean totally naked. We will see a little development of our mold arriving at the morning of the making plus 4 days. And you can come back in the aging rooms at night of this fourth day, and it will become totally white.
Mhm.
So it's really in the short amount of time when it starts growing, puff, it's coming and it's becoming very, very silky and velvety. Once it's back, so that's globally mostly what we want, something white all the way on the outside. When we pack it at between 8 and 12 days, the cheese is pretty hard because the ripening cultures are starting to work on it, but are not at the full speed.
So at first it's going to be a similar springy, bouncy, curd-like texture to your Petite Breakfast. And then it will start to age from the outside in.
Exactly. So this one, if you can see, so this
Mhm.
one, so that's very interesting on this one because you have little holes. That means the bacteria are already working on this one, and they are developing gas, but they are also developing flavor. And we can see, so I don't know if you can see it, but in the middle, you still have a little core.
So
It's
we
still
call the
hard.
core that thick, hard paste of
And we can see at the extremity, so here it's a little softer because the ripening will start at the outside of the cheese and will go through the inside. So here it's soft and in the middle it's harder. So I'm guessing that we shipped you cheeses maybe around 45 days after making. So around 33 days after packaging. So we call it optimum date. Why we call it optimum? Because at this step, we still have the difference of texture.
Yep.
But the flavor, it's my favorite time. The flavor, it's getting more complex at this time.
Right.
So it starts to develop more of that buttery, aromatic quality. And we do have a cheat sheet also on our packaging here on the back. We recommend, between 3 and 4 weeks right here is the best time to eat the cheese. So that's when it's going to have that, firm center, but that defined cream line around the outside. So this one we're about to show you is on the other end of the spectrum.
What is the date for this one?
This one is right about at the optimum point. This one is September 2nd.
September 2nd, so that means we have only three weeks to go, 3 weeks and a half, or something like that. So we can see that here.
Starting to get, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, and that's what we want when you want to be in at the front cover of Culture magazine.
Exactly.
I'm pretty sure you want a cheese like this.
That's right.
And I remember 2 years
corn.
ago or 1 year ago, you guys put a cheese of us in the front cover, and it was like this.
And we love you for it.
Oh yeah. And at this time, so it's very interesting. With this kind of cheese, you can almost spread it,
Yes.
and it's at this time the flavor it's phenomenal.
So there is, always that personal preference when you get people in the store and they're asking you, what's the texture going to be like? What's it going to be like? It's important to remember it's a living product. So the farther out that expiration date is, the firmer it's going to be. And if you get a customer, and we all do, that's going, I just want goo. I don't want cheese. I want a puddle of goo. Then you're going to want to give them something that's very close to its expiration date. It'll continue to ripen. That center core will continue to get creamy. And, with all our cheeses, we do recommend, especially if you're going to be serving them, to remind people to get them out about 40 minutes before they're going to be eating them, to really give them time to warm up, and that helps to enhance the aroma and the flavor of the cheeses. So now I'm starving. Should we dig in?
I was just going to say, we're about to have a revolution here. We're having people say, "Can we taste these, please?" So let's have it.
All right, it's on. So let's go ahead and start with kind of our mildest, gentlest cheese, which is going to be our fresh Chablis. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. This one is a fresh goat cheese from Laura Chenel. And I'll go ahead and get a big cracker full of cheese going for Simon and I here. Please go ahead and try this by itself first so that you can really enjoy the creamy, citrusy notes and flavor of this cheese. And so you'll notice that it's got a beautiful white color, and goat's milk does tend to have a whiter shade than cow's milk. Wow. And a little bit citrusy. What are you guys tasting as you're digging into this at home?
I'm not seeing any answers yet, but I taste a really nice tang. It's a little bit of yogurt. Here we go. Sherry is saying she put the plain on fresh sliced peaches this morning. So Sherry's already been at it. So perfect together for breakfast. Lemony and yogurty. John Braga says it's lemony and yogurty. Yep.
That sounds exactly right. Divine. And this is great with, any kind of classic application, sweet or savory, because it's such a clean taste.
Cynthia wants to say that it's grassy. Yeah, interesting.
A little grassy, a little bit of that yummy goat barn taste.
Yeah.
But nice and mild. So from there, let's do our beautiful flagship Petite Breakfast, and we'll just take turns for Laura and Marin as we go along here. So Petite Breakfast, as flagship, tends to be a fan favorite. And I really recommend this one. Again, first try it by itself, but then I love it with a little bit of pepper jelly and a salami. So I've got some of that here too, and we'll do a little pairing.
Yeah, exactly.
So somebody has also suggested enjoying with, I think she's talking about it's Carrie Jared saying that she had it with sauteed corn and fresh tomato.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
I happen to have
How
that
much more California do you get than corn and tomatoes? All right, I'm going to go ahead and add a little something extra here. Feel free to make your own pairing if you've got it. If you guys plated up for the event today or followed our little pairing cards.
With the Petite Breakfast, it's honestly I was not used to eat fresh brie like this in France. It was totally new for me 2 years ago, and I fall in love with this product because there is nothing to compare with this one on the market.
It's very versatile.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's very good to cook with it. You can do grilled cheese, for example. When you cook it, it's melting very well.
And it's great because there's no rind, so you don't end up with that texture in your baked goods. You don't have to peel it up. Oh, hibiscus marmalade. That sounds heavenly, Lindsay.
Also, Petite Breakfast with lemon curd. I happen to have those too.
That'd be delicious. I'm going to try that tonight. I've got some bone marmalade.
And lavender honey. A lot of good ideas here.
Yep.
I love it.
Sounds good.
All right. So from there, it's Laura's turn again. Let's dive into this beautiful goat brie. Now, you guys, yours should be just about perfectly aged, the ones they got you. They should be a little bit firm with a little bit of a cream line. And if you like that grassy goat flavor, this one's going to be for you.
So very interesting. We can see the difference in the aging right now. So the middle, it's still pretty hard because we still have the core, and the outside, it's already aging properly.
Flamencooch. What is that?
Flamencooch?
I don't know either. What is that?
Yeah, so it's like a pizza, but coming from Germany. We have a very thin crust and onions and bacon and cheeses, and of course, it's very good.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
How interesting. Okay.
Great with the goat free.
It's a wood fire pizza. But different.
From Alsace, everything from
Yes,
Alsace.
from Alsace, yes.
Okay.
So you get a little bit of that grassiness, a little bit of that nuttiness, but still very clean.
Yep.
And mild for an aged goat cheese.
And in my personal taste, the goat brie is my favorite one.
Yeah, I love this one. I put it in everything. I like to do it in a galette with leeks and onions. It really does well with aromatics. And then our beautiful fruit. So if you guys baked one, I'm happy for you. You're about to have a great experience. And if you didn't bake it, you have something to look forward to. Now I baked this one a little while ago, so it might not be quite as gooey, but you can see, oh yeah, it's still warm and flaky. Oh yeah.
I don't know if you can see it.
You can see the cheese gooping out here.
Wow.
There's nothing not to like about that. So it has this butteriness, flakiness. I just fondled this one, but Simon, please feel free to have some if you want.
Maybe I will
Fondled.
have to go running 10 miles tonight with all these cheeses.
So this is a partnership.
Beautiful. Yes.
A local bakery
in
San Francisco, and they produce, we send them our traditional brie, and they wrap it in flaky pastry and par bake it so that it can be finished at home. This is a great holiday item. It can be frozen, so it's really great as far as inventory goes. You can hang on to it, and then it's good for a few weeks after it's defrosted as well. So it has time to move, and this is something people love for dinner parties for the holidays. And as I mentioned, I love it for a tidy lunch for one.
With a little salad on the side. Yep.
We have a ton of really interesting suggestions. I'm going to ask Bill to perhaps, maybe we could put this on our site or something so you guys can, in our social media, so you guys can see it. Really cool ideas.
I'd love to hear. And then last but definitely not least, we're going to dig into one of our holiday goat flavors here, which is our cranberry. Now this one is really, it's a unique take on cranberry. It has a nice cinnamon flavor, and this lends itself very, very well to really any holiday application. It's delicious by itself. It has this nice festive pink color, and I went ahead and put just a little fresh honeycomb on top of ours for some additional texture. But you can see the little hints of cranberry running throughout, and it's nice and seasonally sweet.
Wow.
And it doesn't taste like anything else out there. It's good. It's really good. It's wonderful in dessert applications. I like to mix it in with my sweet potatoes for the holidays. So tons of great usage occasions. All right, I'm gonna take you guys in. Oh, I forgot the star of the show. You guys, Simon caught me. I tried to skip out without showing you guys our beautiful princess.
Yes.
Our super gold queen of the show, our triple creme brie that is just this beautiful, gooey, joyful slice right now. Just see it squishing. And this one is nice and buttery and mild. It develops this wonderful creamy flavor and texture. And it's so clean, you can really pair this with anything.
Just smell it. You can smell the cream and the acidity of the milk.
Yes. It's really, really
Yeah.
creamy. You can definitely smell that.
Yeah.
And it has just a little bit of that tangy funkiness that you expect from a brie,
Wow.
and great texture. It coats the mouth when you take a bite.
Yes.
Thank you, Simon. It would have been a shame.
Thank
not
you,
to enjoy
Simon. That was
one.
terrific. Yep.
All right, and thanks for so much time. I'm going to
You're
go ahead
welcome.
and take everyone inside, and we're going to meet with Leslie, who's one of our cheesemongers in the shop, and she's going to share a little bit about her experience.
Thank you so
Okay.
much. Bye.
Thank you.
Simon. All right, and we'll come out and clean this later. Hopefully our little duck friend at the pond doesn't come hunting in the meantime. We do get a great assortment of wildlife out here. We get to enjoy, there's a few different ducks and geese that come out to the pond, beautiful birds, and there's actually some fish every once in a while. Simon's such a gentleman, he's holding up the fence for me here. Every once in a while, we'll even find someone who's out here fishing, although you're not really supposed to. The other day we were out here and someone caught about a 10-inch fish out of the pond. It was pretty good size.
Wow.
Imagine our surprise. All right, I'm just coming in to grab Leslie here. She's packing up all of our samples. She's the magnificent person who put together all of your cheese boxes for you as well. All right, Leslie, you ready to party?
Sure.
All right. This is Leslie. You can see.
I know it's really loud here.
We're going to take you out to the cheese shop to chat. Thank you, Leslie, for putting together everyone's cheese boxes so we could all enjoy them all together today. Oh, you got a thank you too, Andrea.
Yep.
You're welcome.
All right. Simon's going to turn on the lights for us too. A bonus. All right. So here we are at the Marin French Cheese counter with Leslie, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience. So Leslie, tell us what life is like working at Marin French Cheese.
Well, I've been here for 4 years. I started off when I was 17, now I'm 21. And you learn so much. We've met people from all over the country. They come and visit because we are the oldest cheese company. And you learn so much. I've learned so much from our cheese from other people, that we get like chefs in here. We get people that do so much experience with our cheese. And it's just so much fun. You get to meet people from all over the place, learn about their culture. Like, we get a lot of people from France out here, and they tell us about our cheese and how it's similar and stuff. So it's nice to be able to compare that.
And it's fun to see too, because even though we do have some very traditional French style cheeses like our triple creme, our brie, our camembert, being in Marin and being outside of that, very set style, we're allowed to do a lot of experimentation that might be frowned upon in France, which is how we get adventurous flavors like your favorite.
Petite Breakfast.
And then petite jalapeno, petite truffle. So we do have a full line of different flavored bries as well. All kinds of different flavors, something for everyone,
Yes.
really.
There's a lot of people that come in here and it's like, hey, I don't like brie, so then they're like, oh, perfect, the Petite Breakfast is their to go. And they're like, oh, well, we don't, a lot of people say they don't like the rind and stuff, but when they try our triple cream, that it's not so overpowering, and then we help them with dates, because dates do have to do a lot with getting the flavor of what kind of, you want it mild or strong. But there's people that were like, oh, I want some French style cheese, something that stinks. So it's like the slosh.
And that's the local washed rind one that we were talking about a little bit here that uses that coastal air. So that one has a meaty, almost vegetable flavor.
Yeah, and saltiness.
And salty, nice and salty. So tell us about, how people use our recipes, what your experience has been, and what some of your favorites are for,
So a lot of people have used there's a lot of chefs that come in and they use our cheese and sandwiches and pastries and quiche and all sorts of things. Like, for example, the Petite Breakfast is going to be really good to melt. So A lot of people tell me they do mac and cheese, and I've actually experienced doing mac and cheese with it, grilled cheeses. It melts really well on pizza. So it's really good for like recipes. It melts very well because the rind is not in the way of it.
And Leslie makes her Petite Breakfast mac and cheese in a really unique way.
Yeah, so I have an Instapot, so I do the Petite Breakfast with it, and then I actually put bacon on top of it, and it's amazing. And I've tried it with our triple cream as well. I mix these two together. The only thing with this one that I do recommend, if you do bake with it, sometimes what I do, I take off the rind off of it so it melts well with it, because if you do have the rind, sometimes the rind could get into the way and get a little harder. So that's a good recipe. And then a lot of people, the petit jalapeno is another good one, and the mustard. The mustard, a lot of people do grilled cheeses with ham and red onions in it because it has already the mustard and the cheese in it. So that's a good recipe that I've heard too.
And that brie's really interesting. It actually has whole mustard seeds mixed into the curd. And then what about the goat cheeses, Leslie?
So the goat cheeses,
We're gonna move on down the counter. We have our full display of Marin French here. And then we ease into the goat.
so yeah, so the goat cheese is actually, so like the plain chabibs, what I do, a lot of people that don't like flavoring to it, I recommend this one. It's very subtle and it has a tanginess of the goat brie, but very creamy. But a lot of people that want to serve it with other things, what I do recommend is you could add your own jam to it. You can make your own flavoring to it. So people that are like, oh, I want something with, I've had actually yesterday a lady that wanted strawberries with cheese because we have a cranberry one. And I was like, what you could do is literally just get strawberry jam, mix it into what you're gonna make, and that you have your own flavor of goat cheese. Another really good one too that I do recommend, the one that a lot of people, it's a top seller, is going to be our marinated cabbage.
And this is available for holiday, this truffle flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people are like, but what do I do with the oil? You could do so much things with the oil. It could be a dressing. You could cook with it. I mean, it's really hard to find good black truffles, which is ours. Our truffles are really good. And this one is very pungent in truffle. So it's like, I tell them, what I do is I get a baked potato. I slit it, put a little bit of the oil in it and cheese. And it's like a baked potato, cheesy baked potato truffle. It's really good. A lot of people like, so I always tell them that you can make like the cranberry medallion. It's really good on a toast bagel, or you do mashed potatoes or your turkey stuff for Thanksgiving and stuff. That's another good one that I always recommend for holidays.
Yeah,
Holidays
you
are
can just
holiday
slather
products.
it on there in place of cranberry sauce.
Yeah, so it's the cranberry together. Another thing is the goat brie. A lot of people that want a brie, but they can't have goat. It's a good thing that we have a goat brie because then it replaces that, and you could eat it with anything as what we do with our brie. It's just a goat version.
Yeah, goat is a great option for people who are, averse to cow's milk cheese for whatever reason. The fat molecules are a little bit smaller, so for a lot of people, goat is easier to digest.
So just to let you know, I don't want to stop this because this is fascinating. Anybody who wants to stick around, but we are past the hour. So if you guys want to, we're just past 5, right? Or just past the hour. Okay.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you, Leslie, so much.
Thank you, Leslie.
I want to buy all the cheese now and eat it.
And I want to ask a million questions, but I won't. So go ahead.
All right, so I just want to personally thank everyone for joining us today. We've had such a great time chatting with you. I love seeing your ideas. We're going to try those out here, and hearing, how you guys enjoy our cheese too. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate your support. And we couldn't make cheese without you. So we're grateful for the community that supports us, and we hope to be able to welcome you back out to the creamery soon.
That was fabulous. Okay, guys, any questions that you didn't get answered today, you can directly contact Maddie and she can help you. So we will send everybody's contact information both ways.
Perfect.
Thank you
yes,
so
please
much.
feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thanks so much, everyone.
I'm going to go pour some wine. Bye-bye.